whole, Mina, it's hard to equivocate just how much of a cultural revolution Street Fighter 2 was when released in the arcades in the early 90s, followed by an endless number of ports. It became an instant hit, and its legacy and impact is still relevant in today's culture. If you play any Street Fighter 2 game on the Super Famicom or Super Nintendo, it is still a great time, especially Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which got a 5-star all-time great rating on the Rubbish Heap previously. But from this cultural touchstone came a slew of pretenders, taking the premise and fitting it to new and also existing properties. In early 1994, Ranma 1 Chougi Ranbu-hen was one of those many, promising a decent Street Fighter 2 clone with the popular manga and anime's characters, offering both single and two-player experiences, as well as a rather innovative gameplay feature. But we'll get to that. Ribiko Takahashi's Ranma 2 or Ranma 1 for its time was a very popular franchise in Japan, and one of the wave of shonen-aimed properties brought to the West in the 90s that began to build a mainstream Western audience for anime and manga. Prior to Chougi Ranbu-hen on the Super Famicom, Ranma 1 had two other Street Fighter 2 inspired games. Describing them though as mediocre would be kind, and the first famously got a reskin to become the rancid Street Combat in North America, because presumably they judged no one would buy a game based on a fairly new property in those regions. This game features 3 main gameplay modes, a single-player story campaign, a straightforward 2-player battle mode, though it can be played against a computer or even computer versus computer, and last, a tag team battle mode, which is, as the name would suggest, picking 2 characters to play against another player, and during a bout tagging in your partner. A very early example of this kind of gameplay in a fighting game, predating even King of Fighters 94 by a few months. But let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. The game's roster reflects the later arcs of the manga and anime, which had at this stage become restricted to original video animations or OVAs, as the weekly anime had ended in 1992, before the manga also did likewise in 1996. So while some characters that you may like to see as playable characters are absent, such as say Principal Kuno, Gosen Kugi, Ranma's father Genma in human form, there is a good roster to be found here, with staples like Ryoga, Tatiwake, and Kodachi Kuno, Shampoo, Ukyo, Akane, Genma in panda form, and of course Ranma in both boy and girl type form, as well as a handful of others. Some fighters are physical combat fighters such as Ranma himself from Yoga, whereas others like Moose, Ukyo and Tatiwake lean more towards being weapons-based fighters. I love this split as it adds quite a bit of replay value and a lot of variety. Of course, each player has a range of specials or orgi, triggered by very much Street Fighter 2 style motions and button combinations. But in truth, Chougi Ranbu-hen has much more in common with an SNK fighter with its weak and hard punches and kicks, as there are no medium attacks. Some specials are also triggered with a A and X or B and Y button combination, which is very accessible, and you can even independently for each player set whether one of the orgi is available on the right shoulder trigger for easy access. Throws are done by approaching an opponent and doing an X or hard punch. Last is your taunt on the left shoulder, which is used to access a super special for each character. If you manage to taunt without getting hit, your life meter will begin to flash, and then a simple special input is required to trigger the special. The manual only describes it for Ranma in boy form though, as a swipe from down to up on a D-pad and striking hard punch or X to unleash his Hiryu Cold Rindan attack. The manual makes it quite clear you'll need to discover what the super special is for other characters though. In a battle match mode, you can adjust each player's handicap in the form of attack and defense stats out of 5 stars that help balance things out for those players who are perhaps not as experienced, along with a cosmetic colour variation for each character. So, if you've always wanted to play as Shampoo but with Ranma-chan red hair, here you go. All of this sets the stage for a deep but accessible fighter. The single-player mode where you play as your chosen character is quite simple. The story goes that one day you receive an invitation to lay your hands on the golden waving lucky cat treasure from the Jackal dynasty, purported to be what aided Alexander the Great in his expeditions and drove Napoleon to become emperor. It will grant a wish to its possessor. To construct this golden maneki neko, as it's known in Japanese, will require 12 materials from around the world. If you choose boy-type Ranma, according to Ranma 1's premise, he wants to cure his curse of transforming into having a girl's body when doused with cold water that he picked up in Jusenkyo with his father on a training expedition. Some of you familiar Ranma will instantly spot a problem with the treasure being a cat. Anyway, it turns out that Ranma was not the only one to be informed, and at each world location he will face a rival in battle for the materials to make the lucky golden cat. This is where I noticed the English translation patch skips a few minor details in the original Japanese story, which I can only assume was done due to constraints on screen space. In the story mode, it's as per Street Fighter 2, the best of 3 bouts, 2 wins and you win the round, lose and you'll get a continue that retains your score as you do so. The final battle is against manga protagonist Herb, a secret character of sorts, though he is available in the tag match mode. In the options screen, you can also set the difficulty of this mode to add to the challenge, adding some replayability as well. I'm no expert on this, but while some wrestling games featured tag team play mode before, to my knowledge this is one of the earliest fighting games to feature tag team match mode, predating King of Fighters 94 and the official Guinness World Record holder of X-Men vs Street Fighter in the genre. Is it the first? I don't know, and I'll defer to experts to educate me on that, but it's surely very early on. It's not that deep, but it does add something to the gameplay. Both players choose 2 characters to play as, and in each bout if a player manages to get to their respective edge of the screen, player 1 being on the left side and player 2 being on the right side, hitting select will tag in your other character with a little delay in gameplay, and then they'll come with their own life gauge. A mini timer will then count down where you can then tag back in your other character when this expires. Played well, this gives you 2 life bars essentially and does add some challenge, like a successful forward attack could put your struggling opponent on the opposite side of you, denying them easy access to tagging their partner, or the mini gauge that prevents tagging in too quickly. Overall, this was a lot of fun and does add to the game. Graphically, this is a game that has some nicely drawn characters that animate well, and the backdrops range from mediocre to good and have a small amount of animation. They're pleasant enough, but not that iconic. A little derivative, and they don't detract too much from the game, but the South Pole location really needed some penguins or something in there. I suppose I'd love to have seen a set to the backdrops as in the manga in suburban Nerima, such as Taken on Akane at Shakuji Koen, Shampoo outside on Neko Hanten, Tatewake Kuno at Furinkan Koko, and so on. Sound-wise, it's all pretty good, if a bit average, and though the voices are muffled, it sounds like the actual anime voice acting cast, which given that this was published by Shogakukan, the manga's publishers, that would make sense. I have a confession to make. The footage you've seen so far in this review is from a patched version of the game that runs at 60 frames per second. All footage from now on is from the original cartridge. This plays quite fluidly in single-player story mode, though there is some slowdown, along with inputs that aren't registered properly and some questionable lack of collisions on occasion. Add in a second human player though, and the game did start to noticeably slow down. Not unplayably so, but there was a noticeable hit to performance. This didn't spoil the enjoyment completely, but this does taint an otherwise very enjoyable experience. But in 2024, a patch was released by Upsilandra, apologies if I got the pronunciation wrong, which fixes the frame rate to a solid 60 frames per second, fixes some of the bad collisions, and tightens up the inputs massively. It transforms the 2-player experience, and I'm just gutted that my original game cartridge doesn't contain this code. Japanese language accessibility-wise, much of this game is already in English, minus the story and the odd bit of Japanese here and there, such as in the character names, but you can play this one with no Japanese knowledge at all, and of course there is also the English translation patch. On the Rubbish Heap scale for preferable Japanese level, I rate this as none required, but the story I'd rate a conversational Japanese level or somewhere around JLPT N3 or N2. Overall rating-wise, the patch makes all of the difference this game, making it fast and fluid. It's a very fighting game with a good roster of characters with excellent differentiation, making it easily the best fighting game based on the Ranma 1/2 franchise. Patch, this is a 4-star great game on the Rubbish Heap scale, and I admit my familiarity with the characters is part of this rating, but even players who don't know the characters had a lot of fun with this one. Would I play this over Street Fighter 2 Turbo? Yes, actually sometimes I would, though that is the superior game, and not just for the iconic status that it still holds. Patched up, Chougi Ranbu-hen is a very enjoyable game that, like any game in this genre though, is best with a second player. Single player, like most games in this genre, is going to dull the enjoyment quicker, but at least you can amp up the story mode's difficulty. A big chunk of what made this game a great one, rather than just a good one, is due to the work of Upsilandra, and to you for your hard work, thank you so much. We are truly indebted. As always, like, subscribe and all of that shit, and also check out this rad Rubbish Heap merch, available worldwide on Redbubble and Amazon. See the links below for how to purchase. I've been Saki Endo, and this has been a Rubbish Heap. じゃあねーね。
究極の格闘ランマ第3弾。このスピード、このグラフィック。超技乱舞編。